Aloha.
Konnichiwa.
And why are you saying konnichiwa?
Because it sounds nice to say off the tongue. Just got back from a trip to the beautiful Japan. So
The beautiful Japan.
Japan.
What was your favorite thing?
The hospitality. Never in my life have I experienced anything close. And we've seen and done neat stuff, and it was nothing like anything we've ever experienced. People were lovely. Yeah.
I love that.
was
And what was your favorite thing you ate?
Oh my gosh, the meat. Shocking. I know, sushi for days. We had that, and that was great. But the beef, the Kobe beef and the Wagyu.
For days.
Dude,
For
mind-boggling.
days.
And they give you such a small amount, so you feel really okay about just inhaling it.
Yeah.
And it's clean as all get out. Like, in the air, feels like Evian water was just thrown through it or something. Like, it's as clean as... It's wild. Anyway, must go.
That is so exciting. I must go. And I'll have to talk to you about all the stuff and things to do.
Yeah.
Well, we missed you. I said you can never go that long again. You were far and long away, and the time zones were
The time zones were
bad.
tricky.
And yeah.
Okay.
So like how far ahead or behind were
It's
you?
14-hour difference, which is a tricky one. For here to there with 14 ahead.
No one's awake at the same time.
Very little awakeness.
Okay.
And while we were there, I have a uncle who was sick right before we left. He went in, and so he passed while we were there. And so that was just a really tricky thing to be that far from my family and not,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, things just happen. But it was that reminder, like, oh God, if I wanted to get back right now,
You couldn't. You
Yeah,
can't. Yeah.
So-
And how long was that flight?
13 hours nonstop. To Tokyo, which was good. And then the comeback was, it's always a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're chasing the earth.
You're chasing the earth.
You're chasing it. Well, on today's podcast, we are so excited. We have an amazing guest. So you have heard Casey and I talk about the importance of the trifecta, right? The architect, the designer, and the builder on a project. And today we're going to talk to an architectural designer that I think you guys are going to fall in love with. And I know you've worked with him.
Yes. And I will have to say, he's probably one of the few that has really little ego in it. And it's hard. We all try and say we don't have an ego in our work, but we all do. And he doesn't. He allows for us to kind of come in and comment and make changes or suggestions without it really affecting how he saw his own work. So I think it's really special.
Which is a really interesting combination in an architect. A lot of times they're very into their work, and change is not something that they all love. Some of them do, and this is certainly one of those. So we're excited to welcome him, and we'll introduce him in just a second.
Okay, so we are so excited. We are here today with David Cox from Design DCA, and just tickled. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
And so, who are you?
Who am I? That's a good one. Well, I am an architectural designer. I've always had a passion for it. My dad was a drafter when I was a child, so I was exposed to it at a young age. He was in the housing industry for a brief period of time, actually, and moved on to other things. But I just kind of always loved that. And I grew up with him doing side jobs with his drafting table in the corner of the room, and drawing up house plans for friends and neighbors, and I was always fascinated with it. And after I got past the every kid wants to be a fireman or an astronaut or a cowboy, once I got into the real stuff,
Professional cowboy.
Exactly. That's just kind of where my passion went. I've always had a little bit of an artistic flair along with a technical side, so the two go together well in architecture. So.
Are you a dad, husband?
I am.
What are those things about?
Okay. They're the personal side. Yeah, I am both. I'm a dad to 3. I have a 20-year-old daughter who is a sophomore at St. Thomas University here in town, and then twin 18-year-old sons who are getting ready to graduate next month. So exciting time for my wife and I. We're soon to be empty nesters, and not totally sure how we feel about that yet, but
Oh my gosh,
you're going to have a lot of
know.
time on your
Yeah.
hands.
Yeah, exactly,
You're going to have a lot of
exactly.
time on your hands.
yeah, Sydney's right here in town, so we see her often, obviously, and the boys are going to be at Texas State, so not.
Oh,
too,
okay, so
not
they're
too
both going
terribly far
together,
away.
though, to
They
Texas.
are.
Oh,
Yeah,
that makes
they
it
are.
nice for you guys.
It does.
Love that.
Yeah.
Make Parents
Yeah.
Weekend a lot easier.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
how fun,
definitely.
too. Yeah.
It does.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. Texas State, that's where Shannon's daughter where Sarah goes, right?
I think so. One of our designer friends. Yep.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay. Nice.
very cool.
It's a great campus.
Exciting time for you guys, though.
It really
kind
is.
of weird feeling, though.
You know, it's a busy month with graduation parties and everything else going on. So we're just kind of holding our breath to get through all that right now. But
Yeah. And then when it's over, it's over.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just hold on for the whole thing and then go. Yeah.
Most definitely.
Will you guys stay where you're at? Are you guys, will you keep the family house, that kind of deal, or?
We're not in any hurry to make a change. I mean, it's something we've definitely been talking about and, you know, daydreaming about, looking a little bit to see what's available and what we might want to do instead. We have a property over in Bastrop within the walking distance of the downtown area, the historic part of town, that we're
beautiful.
working on plans for a little weekend getaway Airbnb over there, so that, you know, within the next year, hopefully we'll have a little part-time residence there. But
that's really
no
cool.
major changes right away.
Yeah.
So
I totally get that.
Yeah, that's cool.
So back to the business thing. I'm curious to know, are you happier when you find out that there's an interior designer on the project, or does that sometimes make things more difficult, or is it both?
totally happy, honestly. I appreciate the collaboration. I enjoy the collaboration. You know, when I go back and look at finished product, finished photography, walk completed homes, the ones where an interior designer is involved are hands down always better, you know, without exception. So, I have the same philosophy you all do, the whole team approach, you know, sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, you know, is ideal to have all three parts in place: a builder, interior designer, and architectural designer. Just makes for an overall better project and helps the client, keeps things on budget, because it's not design bid where everything is getting done and then they get that sticker shock of the price at the end once they bid it out. The builder is a collaborator, a part of the team early on, and can really, you know, kind of throw up a red flag if things are getting a little too crazy. So
that's interesting, because I, when I refer clients to you, and they want me to jump in from the very beginning, I'm like, David is so awesome. Let's let him do what he's awesome at. And then when y'all think you're really close, then I come in. But I've never really talked to you about that.
Right.
That is just something that I've always thought, you're so good at what you do with the clients. It's like, I don't want to muddy the waters and make that more difficult.
And I appreciate that. And I think you and I have that relationship at this point where that works perfectly fine. You know, I just like to know that the designer is in place, you know, whether we're meeting yet or not, you know, the way you and I do it is totally great. It wasn't funny at the time, but kind of a funny story with an interior designer whose name I won't mention, obviously, that was involved early on in a project, custom design client, not a spec home. And we were on about our fourth or fifth meeting of design development. Things were going great, getting really close to signing off on the floor plan and going into full-on construction documents. And the interior designer showed up at the latest meeting and unrolled a set of plans, a sketch, and a complete floor plan that was not the one we had been working on. It was something she had created that she thought the client should do instead of what we had been working on for about 60 days or so.
So how did you on this journey up until
she had
then?
been in every meeting.
Oh, she had been at every meeting and then does this.
And then pulled this. So
how did you handle that? She was removed.
Yeah, she was removed from the project within a couple of days after that by the clients. They were just as surprised as I was that she had done it, and politely told her, you know, we're perfectly happy with where we are. We have no reason to revisit this or start over.
Oh, my, interesting.
So it was that's the exception, obviously.
Sure.
You know, that
all I can think of is I have this siren going off in my head going, right. Stay in your lane, stay in your lane, stay in your lane.
And I do that with you all as well. You know, I mean, it goes, that respect goes both ways. And that was the first and thankfully only time that's really ever happened.
That's a big, for her to have sat through all those meetings and not felt like maybe she was heard or wasn't going to speak up, or did a side message with you like, hey, I think maybe we're hearing this different, but like presenting that way would feel a little like a kick in the
Yeah. It was a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
But I felt kind of justified when, you know,
when
what
so clearly there was something else.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was obviously something else going on there.
So you mentioned both custom and then spec. So I know, you know, we've done spec with you and you've probably done custom with him.
Right.
Which do you have a preference, or how do you kind of lead into each of them differently? Because they've got to be such a different beast.
They are. And I like variety, which is one thing I love about Houston, just all the different styles we can work in here. I don't know that I really have one favorite over the other because they both have their positives. The builders that I do spec design for that I've had long-term relationships with, they put a lot of trust in me, so they give me a lot of free reign. They just give me criteria of what the sales price is going to be, the target size for the neighborhood. We always kind of have a laundry list of rooms that have to be in there to cast a broad net to appeal to a broad audience in a spec home. But the freedom that I have in those projects is obviously enjoyable. But the custom clients, you get to branch out a bit more. You're not pigeonholed into that spec home mold of you have to have 5 bedrooms, you have to have a game room, you have to have a study, all of these things.
Right.
You get, more creative requests depending on their lifestyle, collections, hobbies, pets. We have specialty rooms for pets sometimes, just anything and everything.
Yeah.
So I appreciate them both, honestly.
That's really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is your favorite project that you've ever done?
That is tough because it's just ever evolving. I mean, I always
Your
have
current
a
baby
new
is the
favorite.
best
Yeah,
baby?
exactly. I always have a new favorite.
What's your current favorite? Yeah.
Oh, current favorite is one that you're heavily involved in, obviously, that's getting ready to finish up soon over on Curry Lane. So that one's looking amazing, thanks to you. And that's going to be an exciting one to see finish up. So.
Yeah, that's the current favorite baby. I like
Right.
that. I'll take it
Yeah,
until a
take it
new
and run
baby
with it.
comes along and replaces that.
Yeah. And we have ones on the board right now, obviously, that are, kind of right up there with it. But it's just always, I love what I do, and it's just always something new and exciting. And, it's an evolution of likes and dislikes and favorites.
So do you, because I know different architects kind of do a different, some do the plans and kind of hand it over and then that's the end. You don't see the architect
Right.
again. Are you one, do you like being on site? Do you like being kind of called in for meetings that are?
So we offer
Questions?
either or.
Okay.
So our basic standard agreements were contractually complete when the client gets the building permit in hand.
Okay.
But we offer full service where we'll do site visits at certain key points. Whether the client chooses to take that route or not, we're always a phone call or an email away. And, I enjoy going out and walking projects just for my own personal enjoyment. So it's not something we have to be paid to do. I just do it.
Yeah, it is so fun.
Yeah.
But most of our projects were contractually complete when permit is in hand.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
So I asked about the favorite project.
Right.
What is the worst project you've ever been
worst.
on? And I hate to ask that because, negativity is not always the best way to approach things, but sometimes we can learn things from the worst projects.
Exactly. We all have our horror stories, I'm
Yep.
sure. Well, kind of a funny one that comes to mind, and it never came to fruition, so it was short-lived. But I met with a gentleman probably nearly a dozen times going through concept design development. I thought we were finally close. We were having a meeting to wrap things up and move into construction documents. And he brought his wife, and I had never heard mention of her. I had never laid eyes on her. I'd never seen her. I didn't even know the gentleman was married. And she had not even seen the plans to this point. I mean, this was probably 6 months worth of work.
Oh my God.
And she had not seen them until we sat down for the meeting in my office that day. And he was a very unique individual and had some very unique and specific requests that I didn't really like either personally, but he's the client. I'm trying to make him happy. And she was totally not on the same page with him whatsoever. So I politely told him they needed to go home and figure out their differences. And
You never saw him again?
never saw him again. So.
Are you serious?
Never saw me. Their differences. We have such huge differences. 3 years later,
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
still
They'll knock
talking
on your
about
door
it.
in like 3 years. Okay, we
actually drove
figured
by
it
that.
out.
With different
Now we know what
spouses,
we want.
right?
Yeah.
With different spouses. Oh, no.
I drove by their lot a couple of years after the fact, and there was a home there, but it looked absolutely nothing like I had worked on with them. So I don't know if possibly they sold it to somebody else and just walked away from it.
And they're both living in different cities now.
Could be. Could be.
Married to different people, possibly.
Right, exactly.
I got it.
That
would be, I can imagine that the air was thick in that meeting. So
yeah, it was a funny one. It was, I mean, in hindsight, it was funny.
Just as a side note, and I just learned this recently when you and I spoke, but what percentage of projects that you design never come to fruition?
Oh, I mean, thankfully it's not a lot, but it does happen multiple times a year for various reasons. I would say probably any given year it could be 10 to 15%.
Wow.
Does that shock you?
That's pretty high.
It is, and it's always a bit of a disappointment when it happens.
At different stages too?
Different stages. Very seldom is it all the way through construction documents, but that happens occasionally. We had one last year that went all the way through construction documents. They had a builder involved early on giving preliminary pricing, and the project kept growing and growing and growing, and the builder was very open and honest with them about it, as was I. And I think they thought there would be some magic solution at the end of the day to reduce things by 25%. And when they finally accepted there wasn't, they sold the lot and bought somewhere else. We had one last year that we were designing for a lot by Lake Travis over in Austin, which is obviously a fun, exciting thing to do. But it was a Houston couple doing their weekend eventual retirement home over there, and they weren't quite up to speed on the cost over there, and it was a large lot,
digging through the rock,
long driveway, topography, rock, everything else. So unfortunately, once they started getting some numbers early on, thankfully, during conceptual stage from the builder, they realized it just was not going to work out. So it can be for a variety of reasons, but often cost.
Pretty comfortable telling people at the very beginning, like this, do you have a builder? I mean, because that is one of the things, I think the reason a lot of the plans are left on tables is because they get in and they're like, I want the doors that open from here to tomorrow, and and it gets built in, and then it's not budgeted or priced out, and then they can't build it out. Yeah. But you're a practical guy, so you're not going to build out this thing that somebody could never financially, or if it wasn't in the discussion, right? Yeah,
it's a discussion we try to have often and early. Yeah. Some people are very tight-lipped, unfortunately. We find, I'm sure
they have no budget until they have a budget,
right? Until they do, yeah. It's hard to read people sometimes if, we try to get them to just be upfront and frank about it. Oftentimes we're trying to connect them to a builder as well, obviously, when they don't already have one in place. And I don't know, I just speculate that there's some sort of fear that we're going to expose to the builder what they say. So all of a sudden, even if it could have been done for $300 a foot, but they tell me they can budget for $350, it's going to be $350, which really isn't the case, but I think certain people have that fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like we're ethical people. We're not going to take you to this place, but we'll also be honest and say we can't do all these things within this budget. So is there wiggle room? But
the doors are a great example around here. Everyone comes to us and wants the 20-foot nano wall that fully opens, like they see in the California inspiration homes, and we. I remind them this is Houston, not Santa Barbara.
Those 4 days of use are going to be amazing, but maybe
however, that adds $100,000 to the budget because we have to beam all the way across there, and it's no joke. It's a lot goes into that.
Exactly.
Have you ever fired a client and just said, "I am not the one for you"?
I have tried a couple of times. I've actually offered design deposits back a couple of times when. I do my best to vet people and personalities, but sometimes you just don't know until you really get into the thick of things. Mm-hmm. So there have been a couple of occasions where I've offered design deposits back, although work has even already been done, just to kind of gracefully part ways sooner rather than later. And both times they put their foot down and wanted to continue to work with me. So we muddled through. Everybody was happy at the end. I want to turn that question around on you all because I'm curious.
I have a couple times, yeah.
And how?
One was just to offer the woman I was like, I just think you have taken such a liking to this process. And she did. Instead of me being upset that she was over, stepping and kind of, we talk about the rogue client, but she went completely off the rails with it. But then I realized this is her house and she's excited and she should be able to do. Yeah. But I can't partner with a home, right?
Exactly.
So that was one. And then the other one, it was just a very volatile situation.
Yeah.
So I did give them their money back, which now still grinds me because I did so much of the
Right,
work.
I
I'm
know.
like, why did I do that? But I want it out and I wanted it clean and not
Yeah.
Your mental
that.
health is so
It
much
was
better today because you did that.
probably
for sure.
the right
Yeah.
decision.
Worth the money.
Sure.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
that's, yeah. And
We definitely end up in situations where we almost end up becoming more of a drafting service at times to certain clients, which is always a bit frustrating. But again, like you say, it is their house at the end of the day. So I try to balance the, giving my input, my technique, my knowledge, but yet it is their home that they're spending sometimes millions of dollars to build,
So how do you
it's all
kind
that-
of talk to them about that when they say, we'd really like this to be a 8x12 room instead of,
Right.
or whatever?
Sometimes I do my best to just put my foot down and say, no, and you have to go through multiple steps to explain why sometimes. Other times, if it works, maybe it doesn't work as well as what my solution would, in my opinion. But if it works and it is their home, we just kind of acknowledge and say, it's not exactly what I would do, but we can do
I
that.
love it when you
So-
when we're in a meeting and you know it's not going to work, but the client's insistent that it's going to work, and you pull out your vellum and you start drawing on top, and then they see the domino effect of what's
Right.
going to happen, and you're like, "Well, it would work if we added 5 feet on," and they're like, "Oh no, we're trying to reduce the size of this," and then they go, "Okay, we can let go
Right.
of that."
Yeah.
I've seen you do that more than a few times, and because you already know, but instead of telling them no, you gracefully show them and let them come to the conclusion themselves. And I love it when you do that.
Well, thank you.
Well,
It's,
I mean, that's huge because people can't look at plans and see like we
no,
see.
exactly.
And so they're like, well, couldn't that be, X, Y, or Z? And you're like,
Right.
I
So
wish it could be.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's-
we wish
that
I
would
wish
be
we
it.
had a budget and we could in the space we could do that. But
If we
Definitely.
add, 5 feet onto this whole side of the house, we can. What's the oddest request you've ever had? Like somebody said, I want you to include a ... What's that?
Well, I mentioned pet rooms earlier. We had one over in the Heights where it was a late in life couple. They'd both been single for years, met, got married, and they were both cat people. But he had stray cats, alley cats, and she had show cats. So they couldn't commingle.
Never the two shall meet.
Right. So the third floor of the home was 2 cat rooms with a wall between with a huge pane of glass. So the cats could see each other, but
Oh my
did
God.
not have to interact.
They're like,
so,
I see you.
I see you so
I
pretty.
see you so pretty.
I see you so straggly.
yeah. That was that was right up there with one of the strangest, I would say.
Oh my God. They're like, the other one's like,
Oh no.
oh my God, I want to go to that house. How fun.
It turned out great. It's a beautiful
I bet
home.
it's beautiful.
It's one that we have in our portfolio and are very proud of. I'm a car guy, so this one was actually a very fun one for me to do. We have a client in Bel Air whose very modern home is just now finishing up, and he has I believe it was a 1969 Porsche, like tangerine orange. It's his baby. So the lot didn't allow for a 3 or a 4 car garage. A 2 car garage was all we could do, but we designed it with a high ceiling and a lift. And his Porsche sits up on the lift, and as you
You
walk
can
into
see
the
it through
home
the
through the
house.
foyer, we put a transom window up
No.
high.
Stop
So
it.
you can see, you can walk
It's
through
like
his
a
foyer and
piece of
see his
art.
Porsche. It is, exactly. It's a piece of sculpture that he gets to view from, the foyer of the home every time
Brilliant.
he walks through. So
I love
it was
that.
fun. It was fun.
How fun.
Love that. What a
Hoping
great
the angles and everything work out, that once the car is
Yeah,
actually up there,
exactly.
that
That
he has the
is
vantage point that he was
amazing.
hoping. But
I love
That is so cool. So speaking to that, technology stuff. I mean,
Right.
you're integrating. There's so much now. It's
there is.
mind blowing. How much do you like to put in kind of baseline? Do you put in baseline kind of electronic stuff, or what is yours on
We
that?
used
Where
to.
you
We've
see
kind of morphed on that over the years, just because there are so many different things now, and it's such a specialty industry. So most of our homes, we show so basic technology, camera pre-wires, speaker locations, etc., Wi-Fi extenders. On our higher end stuff, we really don't get into that at all. We recommend that they work with their builder and a
An
specialty AV company, because they're, the sky's the limit. I mean, you can
Right.
control your drapes from your phone,
Right.
anything and everything you want. We'll often provide low voltage wiring at windows for drapery at a future date if they decide not to do it now, things like that. But we try to let the experts
Yeah.
kind of take the lead in that side of things.
And then, building, because it's, having just been on a trip and they just absolutely killed it in their Daikin had their up resort that they've created, but it was just every single detail. And I'm reminded, just because I love what Rainey did with her drop ceiling right there, but where the molding's built out and everything's behind. Just those moments that you realize that had to be done in architecture stage,
Exactly.
because if you try and do it later, you're really screwing up a
Never
ceiling
looks as
somewhere and
good.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
we often specify drapery pockets where it's a channel built directly into the floor truss. For the first floor, the ceiling above has a little channel so that can easily be added and hidden. Sometimes we design it with millwork. Several ways to approach it, but it's always best if it's integrated in or sooner in the process, in the planning process.
Yeah. So staying on that track, have you seen AI yet influence your field? And if so, how? Or what do you see coming?
I see a lot of AI generated renderings. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of capability for that. I personally have played with it a little bit, but not enough to really have an opinion, good or bad. One of my drafters experimented with it some last month on a project we have with some pretty good results. I'm kind of a control freak on certain things, and we do our own presentation renderings in-house, so I'm not ready to turn it over to AI yet, but it's nice to know that component is there and we can just kind of visualize something quickly without putting a lot of time into it. I've certainly relied on Chat GPT more than once for product descriptions, multiple things, reference letters. So it's all great stuff, and it's going to become more and more prevalent, I have no doubt. Day to day, we're not using it a ton, but I can see it coming.
So, people think that we're all going to be kind of kicked to the curb because of it. And do you even see any of that being something that's...
Thankfully, not yet. Yeah. Some AI generated floor plans I've seen are not anything that you would want to start with. Who knows? Maybe the day will come.
We should do a podcast on AI.
Actually, I think that's a good idea because it really is creeping into everything.
It definitely is.
Yeah. And we use it. I mean, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful tool, not in business side so much, but writing letters or contracts.
Exactly. Saves a lot of time. It really does.
But you do in-house renderings yourselves. Do you have a hand renderer, or do they do it all on?
No, we use SketchUp Pro and Lumion to do our modeling. We like to present the client the full exterior of the home. In office, I'll start with rough sketches, but it quickly gets turned into what starts as a fairly rudimentary 3D model of the exterior. As the design development stages go, where we're getting feedback, clients' likes and dislikes.
Because the clients don't know what it's doing to the exterior. They have no idea what it's doing to roof pitches and...
Exactly. Early on in my career, I made the mistake a few times of just focusing solely on floor plan until the client approved it and then jumping to exterior. And that's just, you open yourself up to issues. Now I constantly have a kind of a running visual in my head of what this form is going to look like. And we jump into 3D modeling sooner rather than later, just to make sure that everything is heading in the right direction and that the client's going to like it. And by the end of the design development phase, before we go to construction documents, the client sees a full photorealistic exterior 3D rendering of the home. And we do some 3D interiors as well. It's more time consuming, so that kind of is a project by project basis, but we certainly can.
That's awesome.
What are some trends that you've seen in like the last 3 to 5 years? And then what is something that you're seeing like right now, sort of new on the scene?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for the last few years is the prep kitchen. I mean, that's just, I think the first time we did one was back in 2017 for an Asian family. They tend to cook with a lot of heat, a lot of oil, a lot of spice.
Did you think they were crazy at the time?
No, I thought it was pretty cool actually, because I like to cook. And, if you entertain a lot and you cook, and the kitchen is always the center of the entertainment hub, if it's an informal gathering especially. So it's great to have that area where you can put the dirty dishes, keep the mess kind of contained a little more. We've seen it evolve where, that was about a 7,000 square foot Tanglewood home, but now, we're doing some capacity of prep kitchen in 3,500, 4,000 square foot homes. It's working its way into kind of the more average sizes. And sometimes they are as simple as a walk-in pantry with a prep sink and a dishwasher. And sometimes they are literally second full gourmet kitchens with range, refrigeration, etc. It's a fun thing to play around with. It has kind of, in my mind at least, created a complication of, usually the pantry is very accessible and front and center in the kitchen. And all of a sudden when you're combining it with this big prep space, it sometimes the distance between the two tends to grow. So I
then
found
you
myself
put day pantries in the kitchen.
That's a term I learned from you that I've kind
Yeah.
of stolen and used some as the day pantry. Yeah. That's
the day-to-day.
right. Exactly. Keep your children's cereal, et cetera, right there close and handy, and bulk goods are kind of more back in the prep kitchen pantry area. But that's a fun trend. Anything new beyond that? I don't know. Nothing has really caught my eye
Are you
much
seeing
recently.
anything in the realm of health? That's something that we really are starting to see requests for, cold plunges, saunas,
Right.
those sorts of things.
We've done a couple of saunas. We've had one request for a cold plunge. That's a good point. I mean, I'm not seeing a lot of it, but it is something that's coming.
I think it's something
occasionally.
we're
The
going
home
to
gym is
hear.
going to really, evolve.
Yeah.
I think, big time. Yeah.
I think so.
How fun, though.
So.
And I love that you said a 7,000 square foot house and then down to 3,500 to 4,000 square feet, which is, here in Texas, those are what we're used to hearing. But,
Right.
Being from California,
in other states,
Exactly.
it's like 7,000 square feet. What are you going to do with that? But I love that you kind of gave both those numbers, because a lot of people are living in 2,000 square feet and it's beautiful.
Which is perfectly great.
Yeah. But you were kind of on these other
bigger is better
things.
mentality of Texas, for good or for bad. Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So, yeah. Well, what would you like people to know about you and how kind of working with you? What's different about?
So, I think one of my biggest selling points for our firm is that we're intentionally small. I mentioned before, I'm kind of a control freak. So we don't have layers that people go through during the course of the project. I'm their first point of contact. I'm their last point of contact. We have a project manager in office and then 2 full-time outsourced drafters. But that's it, and it's just, I like to be hands-on in every aspect. I like to know that the client's being taken care of. And, I know that by doing it myself. So just the personal boutique style approach is kind of what we pride ourselves in and really enjoy.
Yes,
I think Casey spoke to this when introducing you, and I say this to clients when I refer them to you, and that is, you're so damn good at what you do, like so good at what you do.
Thank
Your
you.
studio is cool, it's well located, but the ego, it's like your ego is tied to the client having what they want. And I guess there is a point where we'll remove ourselves and say, this isn't my work. I can't have hands on this. But to the nth degree, you will go for a client to be happy with what they have. And you never, there isn't this battle. And I have worked with architects where that is a very difficult thing. And it's like, I will not do that.
Right.
And unless it's like wrong for some reason, like
Exactly.
unsafe, I just don't really understand that.
Yeah, I don't want it to come across that we don't advise what we think is right and what we think is better or best, but I'm willing to bend, when it suits the client's
You'll collaborate.
needs.
And it's not this is how it's going to go.
It's not a rigid process.
You're not changing my design, fix the inside. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a collaboration with you all, with the builder and including the client, they're the ones that have to not only pay for it, but live in it.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. They pay for it too.
Pay for it as well. Yeah.
So have you ever wanted to quit? Have you ever said, I quit?
I've never wanted to fully quit. I did take a break at one point.
What
Late
did that
90s.
look like?
It was fun. It was very practical experience. So, I was in Austin, Texas in the late 90s. Primarily working for myself with a small firm in Austin, and then doing some contract work for a designer in Florida where my wife and I at the time had just left. And I just got tired of sitting at a desk all day. I wanted to be more hands-on. So I took a break from design and actually went to work as a construction superintendent for a home builder, and, experienced that real world aspect of getting out in the Austin heat every day in the summer and walking houses and putting a broom in my hand and sweeping floors if a house was messy and I knew a homeowner was coming by. It was a great experience. And I did that for about 3 years until I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back.
I love that though, because you probably got a really good taste of what it's like then to be on that end, right? So when you make your designs or your, now you really have a different idea. We can just draw for days, but if you're not implementing it or seeing how it's all coming together, that's really cool.
Unless someone has an unlimited budget, there has to be some degree of practicality in everything, you know.
Right.
So,
have you met that client yet? Unlimited budget?
No, unfortunately, no.
Just checking. We're all waiting. I know.
Where is it? It's like I was just going to do that. I was just going to do like,
exactly.
We're all here for you.
Definitely.
And if you've got an unlimited budget, you need all of us together.
That's it. We will kill it.
Most
I
definitely.
love that. Do you have anything else?
Oh, no, just just architectural design.
Right.
So what's different about that than just architecture?
So,
because I think there is
I'm glad you asked.
Nuance.
I did not come through the industry in the normal way, I guess. I was the smart board student in school. I just wanted to be done with school and work and make money. And I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do high-end housing. And the reality is that you don't have to be a licensed architect to do residential.
Right.
Every state's qualifications vary a little bit, but most, if not all states, allow an individual such as myself to do architecture in the residential realm without the license. So I learned through drafting courses, AutoCAD classes, on-the-job training. When I initially left college, I had intentions to go back to continue my education, but life happens, and that's not always as easy as you think it's going to be. But I was fortunate to be able to get a job right off the bat with a local home builder that I worked with, and just kind of grew from there through the ranks, and was purely a drafter at the beginning, which I was fine with. That's what I expected to be for
you
years.
Were too talented, yeah.
Eventually, the talents developed, and opportunities were granted, and
yeah. But all of your
so
plans, when they go to construction drawings, they're all fully stamped,
yes,
fully vetted. So you end up with the exact same thing that you would end up with from somebody who had that
every project
degree hanging on the wall. Right.
We work with Texas licensed structural engineers on every single project. They do the foundation, the framing, the windstorm requirements for hurricane, et cetera. I'm adept in the life safety codes, et cetera, that come into place with residential. So yeah, our work it's the same end result.
Absolutely.
It's just a different approach. And if I could go back in time and do things differently, I would do things differently.
But you might have that ego we're talking about.
Exactly.
Maybe.
And I feel like from the way you went, because I love that.
Organic.
You see too from the inside out, where a lot of times it's from the outside, and then we have to figure out there's a gigantic window in my closet that now we're going to cut.
Right.
So you have a different experience, because you're not just this like from the outside in.
Exactly.
I love that about what you do. So anyways, that's what.
And this isn't a knock on architecture school by any stretch of the imagination, but so many times we get resumes and portfolios from recent graduates or soon to be graduates, and you look at their portfolios and it's beautiful forms, beautiful renderings, but it has little to no real world. I can't look at that and know and understand how this person could benefit my firm in designing a custom home, because it's such theoretical stuff that they're, I'm sure, having a great time doing, but it's
the practicality of that.
Isn't
actually
that like
going.
every industry though?
Right.
Kids go to school and they learn all these things, but they don't really learn about what they're really going to be doing until they do it.
Yeah.
And so that's the truth.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I love that.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for
we are
having me.
huge fans of yours.
Well, as am I.
And you guys, you and your studio do such amazing things for our industry here in Houston and beyond. And so thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us.
That was great,
I appreciate
David.
the invite. I was very excited when
and
you
if you
asked,
want to get in touch with David, it's David at Design DCA, and he is located in Houston, Texas, but again, does projects beyond. So thank you again.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for joining us as we talk to another team member that we work with personally that's involved in architectural design. Hope you loved him as much as we do. He is amazing.
Yeah, go check out his work for sure. And hopefully you got some great info from what he had to say, because I did. always learn something.
Me too. I love the stories. So, and if you would like to reach out to us, you can email us at hello@reframingdesign.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Rainey Richardson Interiors.
You can follow me at Cassandra_brand_interiors.
And follow us wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, YouTube is fun. Then you can see the flowers and the art. And this one is a beautiful French watercolor from a really great local artist that I picked up at an auction. So really, yeah.
Fantastic.
And if you have any questions, please reach out to us.
Yes, or a topic that you would like to talk to us about or like to have us talk about on a podcast. We would love that. Oh my gosh, I love you.
I love you. And we're both scarfing, and I forgot to take mine off, but now I'm kind of glad because it's like a thing.
We co-scarfed.
Instead of a Coast Guard, we're co-scarfed.
I like that.
Until then.
Until next time. Talk to you soon. Bye.
There's a certain magic to this.
They're the ones
Anyway.
It just has closer than what you think. So,
You said like a fist between it.
yeah,
in
then
your
they
mouth.
stopped talking to us about that. So. That was the day.
There's a lot of rendering capabilities out there with AI now. I briefly played with a little bit of it.
You want to start that answer again? That is totally okay. Go ahead, do it. Go.
You can follow me at Casey_. Nope. What's my name again?
Cassandra.
Oh, thank you. Cassandra.
Yes, Cassandra.
Cassandra_brand_interiors.
Do we get to clap?
Please. Do we get to?
Yeah.